Well, BlizzCon was fun, right? You may notice that I have not yet put out a video on BlizzCon. It's been 3 weeks. Where the fuck have I been? I've been sleeping under a rock, apparently. Well, actually, let me just make sure that I'm being correct in that statement. I don't want to come off as someone dishonest. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm an asshole. Before the Storm announcement that I put out for pre-BlizzCon was November 1st. It is now November 19th as I'm recording this, so I might be a little bit late to the party. But at least I'm fashionably late, with all of the information, new and old, that you will need to understand the Immortal debacle that we have on our hands. A situation that has led to other developers absolutely reaming Blizzard for its stupid decision. So without further ado, my name is Aubrey, your humble host of SmurfNet Gaming, and let's talk the biggest flop at BlizzCon. A lot of people look forward to BlizzCon. Some of us watch through virtual tickets like I did this year. Some of us are lucky enough to dole out top dollar to go and experience the moments firsthand. But unfortunately this year, the exciting stuff was overshadowed by a decision that will go down in history as one of the biggest flops made by any company. And for the record, I don't hate Blizzard. I love their games. In fact, since I moved to Canada, Blizzard is up there as one of my main game development companies that I've spent my 8 years, going on 9 years with. I remember it fondly, going and picking up Diablo 3 for the PS3, sitting down on our couch, me and my grandmother. She rolled a monk, I rolled a demon hunter. The game was really fun. This was after the time of the real money auction house that was quite shit. But the game was still fun. Despite all the polishing necessary to work out the issues that people had had in the past, the game was great. And yet, after 8 years of Diablo 3 being a thing, we finally came around to BlizzCon 2018. So let me give you some context, something the games journalists who have been violently defending Diablo, calling fans both toxic fanboys and entitled man-babies. Yes, because Nothing makes me more excited than taking the piss out of stupid games journalists. Some good old-fashioned context is needed for this, because you see, BlizzCon 2018 was around the corner. Rumors started to spread of an exciting new Diablo announcement. Really top-notch stuff. Obviously, we, the fans, were excited. We've waited 8 years since Diablo 3 came out. Maybe this is a remaster of Diablo 1 or 2. Maybe it's a new expansion for Diablo 3. Maybe a new class. Maybe it's even Diablo 4. We were told before the convention via Twitter that good things come to those who wait. The exciting stuff would take some time, it wouldn't be announced at BlizzCon. However, if this was true, they shouldn't have done this next part, because counter to that was the fact that Diablo's What's Next panel was set right after the opening ceremony. Now this spot is important because historically, this is where the huge announcement happens. The biggest one of the con happens right here after the opening ceremony. And something big happened, alright, but it was neither the announcement we wanted, or after 8 years of patiently waiting, really even deserved. Wyatt Cheng came out on stage to announce something exciting, and then it was all like we were inside a space station and the airlock got blown open because the atmosphere in the room was void. As loyal fans slowly realized the frustrating and sad truth, this air quotes big announcement was a mobile game, delivered to an audience made up solely of PC and console fans. Those loyal fans, normally mistaken for modern-day Vikings in account of all the celebrating and revelry and shaking of the Anaheim Convention Center that goes on, were dead silent. And people at the announcement said you could be in the back row and hear a pin drop. People were pissed. The crowd at one point booed Wyatt Cheng's answer to famous Diablo streamer and fan who's been playing and streaming Diablo 3 since it released 8 years ago, Lord Fluffy. I will, of course, leave a link down in the description below to Lord Fluffy's video on Diablo Immortal, because he has a lot more experience with this than I do, and he's quite informed on his opinion. So, what was his question? What was the question that caused so much controversy? Will Diablo Immortal be coming to PC or console, since it has mechanics many of us have been asking for? A simple question. And the reply was also simple. We have no plans to release it on anything other than mobile. And that's when any hope left the Diablo panel, as Wyatt's response, the shocked face, to the crowd booing him, not a normal occurrence since this was the first time anyone's ever been booed at BlizzCon, was, quote, "Don't you all have phones?" Now, if this sounds familiar, it should. Because Patrick Soderlund of EA fame told people who were not happy with women being featured on the front lines of Battlefield 5, seemingly taking place in a war that was almost devoid of women on the front lines, I shit you not, quote, accept it, or don't buy the game. Now, my dear Soderlund, I'm a World War II history buff, and I'm of the belief that games representing the World Wars should favor realism over being inclusive of everyone. Because aside from some major female groups like the Night Witches or members of the French Resistance, I hate to break it to you, but women were largely bomb girls, or the famous women who worked in factories making bombs or tank shells. Look it up. They also were most notable as being nurses in hospitals. And before people want to cry foul and call the World War II era sexist, it wasn't sexist. Calm down, just breathe, have a paper bag. That usually works for people who are about to have a panic attack. Just calm down, because it was a different time period. Seeing women in the military today is as commonplace as seeing people who own a dog or a cat, because the world's progressed since World War II. But back then, it was commonplace for women to be housewives, taking care of the kids, cooking the meals, washing the dishes, doing the laundry, staying at home while the husband went off to fight or go to work. It was a completely different time period, but it was a time period that still exists. You can't just say it didn't. If you're going to make a game based off a time period like World War II, it should be representative of that period in its entirety. You can't just revise history. And funnily enough, this came back to bite EA in the ass. Because a month or so later after this announcement, Soderlund was fired, and EA's stock prices fell from 170-something to 80-something. Kind of a steep drop. And the reason for this is probably because nothing says you love your fans and you value their money, and that you as a company value their use and consumption of your entertainment, than telling them if they don't like your revisionist history of a real event, they can fuck off. And judging by your stock prices, I think a lot of people took option 2 and found something else to do. But we're not here to scrutinize EA, as fun as that would be. We're here to talk about Diablo. So Wyatt, my dear man. I don't know about people at Blizzard, and I don't even know about other people. I'm currently recording this on a $4,000 to $5,000 or even $6,000 setup that I've poured many years of hard work and hard-earned money into. And if you think for a second that people who are like me, playing on custom-built or even pre-built PCs, or even consoles, are going to want to pull out their phone. I mean, what is the screen size of an iPhone X these days? 10, 11, 12, 13 inches? Compared to a monitor that can be as small as 24 and as high as 32. You mean to tell me that you think people want to play on a screen the size of a to-do sheet? I'm sorry, it's just not the case. Why then did Big Pants McGee co-founder Alan Adam say this was meant for the hardcore Diablo audience? I mean, surely if this was meant for your hardcore fans like Lord Fluffy, it'd be on PC and console, not mobile. And this was unfortunate, because this was the beginning of perhaps the biggest gaming shitstorm since all the crap and all the controversy surrounding Gamergate. Because another guy, lovingly dubbed the Red Shirt Guy, asked if this was an out-of-season April Fool's joke. I mean, people were looking for anything other than this announcement. And it makes me a little sick to say this, but one other company at E3 got this formula right. Although you could probably argue that they didn't get Fallout 76 too right. Of course, I'm talking about Bethesda and Elder Scrolls Blades. Now, granted, the reaction to Elder Scrolls Blades was kind of the reaction that Diablo Immortal got, but then we also got the announcement of Elder Scrolls 6 and Doom Eternal and the new game Starfield, the new IP. So obviously, a lot of things good happened for Bethesda. But if Bethesda could get a mobile announcement right, why did a company that's over 20 years old fail? How did Blizzard get this wrong? I mean, maybe the press conference that was leaked could shed some light on that. And it did. You see, as it turns out, Blizzard has been moving a lot of its developers over to mobile gaming. Now, while Alan Adam did say that means they're playing and developing a lot more mobile games, I'm going to make the suggestion that you move those people away from actually working on PC and console games, because If your main game that you're working on is not your main game that you play in your off time, you're gonna have problems. And it might sound a little weird when I say that, but think about it like this. Say I'm a developer for World of Warcraft and I play a lot of mobile games. As such, my knowledge of the systems of World of Warcraft is a little bit less than other people. So when I help design something like Titan Forging, I think it affects only one person, or one group of people. However, if you invent something like, say, Titan Forging, it doesn't just affect people who do dungeons. It affects people who do Mythic Plus, people who raid, and people who do PvP. Quite a lot of groups of people affected by one simple change. This is why we need to have the developers qualified to do the things they're meant to do, doing the things they're meant to do. There's a really good fandom article about Red Dead Redemption 2 and the effects of overtime on the employee and how it can actually lead to a net loss in productivity. Definitely worth a read. I advise you go check it out. But the problem goes further than this. Because across its 6 major franchises, Blizzard has 35 million monthly active users. It's understandably hard to appeal to all of them, but when you do things like the Diablo Immortal announcement, it's essentially giving a big middle finger to the fans who've been waiting 8 years. And it isn't going to convey anything other than that you don't care. Because actions speak louder than words. All the people who are saying, oh, well, they're going to announce Diablo 4. Diablo 4 is on the way. I don't believe you. Because until Blizzard gives us a trailer, we don't know that. We don't know Diablo 4 is coming until we get a trailer telling us otherwise. They could have gone the Bethesda route at BlizzCon and had like some really iconic Diablo 2 Tristram music, that old string guitar, then have Diablo 4, the big Roman numeral, burn into the Burning Hells landscape, that really charred reddish black landscape, and then maybe have Diablo's head land on the title. Something that wouldn't take too long to make, and more importantly, it'd be something that conveyed to your fans, who Alan Adams said himself was a hardcore PC and console fanbase, that the developers are working on something for us hardcore fans, instead of this being what it was, a slap in the face. The announcement that they want to move into the mobile market could be because they're just trying to pander to their potential buyers, trying to showcase the fact that they're truly interested in making a mobile game to generate some interest and hopefully drum their shareholders into investing in the idea. The problem with this sudden urge to push into the mobile market, however, is the same issue with trying to make a YouTube channel successful. Both the mobile market and the YouTube market suffer from saturation. And as another YouTuber, Rurikon, pointed out in his video series on this topic, of the highest grossing mobile games, only one of them is an action-related title. Because, well, honestly, mobile games tend to heavily rely on the short attention span of most people. Pick up a mobile game, do a couple things, maybe play a couple matches, build a couple of buildings, put it back in your pocket, go about your day. That's honestly why Pokemon Go was so damn successful. People who were playing it were doing so while they were out and about, which the game lent itself to quite nicely. Key issue being Diablo's not a good mobile title because it lends itself to playing for hours at a time, getting stronger and stronger, pushing the barrier of what your character can do, and getting more and more success, going further and further, pushing that difficulty curve. That takes time. A lot of time. And that doesn't fit the mold of the pick-up-and-play format that most mobile games excel at. Furthermore, back to the situation of saturation. The issue with YouTube is that most people have a handful of YouTubers they're going to watch regularly, and maybe a few other people they watch intermittently. The same goes for mobile gaming. Most whales and other less spendthrifty consumers of mobile gaming tend to have a few major titles, things like Clash of Clans, Boom Beach, Clash Royale, Magic, or Hearthstone. They generally have a few select games they love on mobile, and it's often difficult to convince them that it's a worthwhile investment to pursue something else. Given the announcement of Diablo Immortal and the whole press conference thing about them trying to branch into the mobile market, you'd think that the stock price would be going up, right? You think the shareholders would be excited. Nope. In fact, it's, if I just pull up NASDAQ, kind of terrifying. So, if you look on the one thing that I have on screen, you'll see that around the time BlizzCon began, stocks dropped fairly sharply, going from around $69 to $64. Not too dangerous. And then the real kicker happened on November 9th. Now, what exactly happened November 9th? Well, Q3 sales earnings were released to shareholders. And the numbers expected for Q4 must have been bad because they went from $64 to $55 in that day. And as I look at the Activision Blizzard Incorporated stock right now, it makes my heart sink. $49 per share. Stock prices dropping in the wake of a bad earning isn't an abnormality, but there's a whole lot more to this than just the company. You see, things that can play into the whole stock market drop are things like Black Ops 4 not making its estimated sales, people leaving Battle for Azeroth in the wake of a very weak launch, Destiny 2 not being overly successful because it constantly tried to push people to use the Eververse. Sound familiar? Diablo 3 real money auction house, anyone? All of these things play into the situation of the stock price. And it's important to understand that at a certain point, companies no longer answer to the customer, but to the shareholder, who, compared to you and me, have a lot more sway over the company. But back to that thing that bothers me, back to that thing that makes my heart sink. The potential that a huge drop in stock could mean. Job cuts. The fact that people could lose their jobs over such a simple error in marketing is really heartbreaking. I mean, imagine some of the people involved with this were just doing their jobs. You know, they're making a game based off someone else's instructions, and all of a sudden they come into work one day and their desk is being cleared off. Sorry, Joe. You got laid off. Imagine if WoW flopped and they fired the team. Some of those people who worked on the things that made Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King great. Losing them would overall hurt the potential WoW has to be a major success. And it's weird to say that anything Blizzard does can be a major success. It feels like it was so long ago now that we had a successful release. Now all we can think of is things like the Diablo Immortal announcement trailer, which, thanks to archive data, we know has had 25,000 plus comments deleted and 100,000 some odd dislikes removed, with the sole intention of making the game look more exciting than it actually is. You want to know some hard irony? Elder Scrolls Blades got more positive than negative reviews. Not because the fans of Elder Scrolls actually liked the idea, but because the core base was given an announcement of something they actually cared about. Elder Scrolls 6. They didn't have to go and complain like people did about Diablo Immortal because they had something to look forward to. One of the main comments on the Diablo Immortal trailer, I shit you not, is this has been deleted 14 times, and again I shall say, no king rules forever, my son. I've been with you for 20 years, but you've changed, Blizzard. You've changed. You know, it almost feels like the AAA greed virus has infected Blizzard. The failed launch of BFA, the absolutely hellish backlash towards Diablo Immortal, the cover-up job, done only to have the Streisand effect come back in full force to slap Blizzard across the mouth, showing the fans that they're trying to censor us, and our right to be angry at the announcement. It almost sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it isn't. This actually happened. And it breaks my heart as a fan of Blizzard to see this level of disingenuousness and disrespect to people who spend hundreds of dollars a year because they love your titles. Fans who happily stake outside of stores for midnight releases. People who spend months creating stunning cosplay costumes. Everything for World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch. And even the AI development behind DeepMind involving StarCraft 2 was exciting. And yet here we have this steaming pile of dog shit that was Diablo Immortal, casting its dark cloud over everything else that was exciting. Heel vs. Babyface had a great analogy for Diablo seeking a mobile fan base. For a game that has, since it started in '96, been PC, and with Diablo 3, console. He said it's like you have a barrel of fish on your boat, and you decide that you want to catch more fish. Even though the fish in the barrel, plenty enough, it'll last you a few days. Make you a nice profit. As you cast out your nets, the fish in the barrel jump out at an alarming rate. But you say to the crew, don't worry, there's way more fish in the ocean and we're going to catch more fish in this net than we have in that barrel. In this case, the barrel of fish is the existing customer base, the hardcore and softcore gamers who grew up with Diablo, WoW, StarCraft, and the fans who have come in to enjoy the newer titles like Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm. They see that Blizzard is caring less and less about appealing to them, and they're jumping out of the boat, moving on. As they cast their nets looking to pull in a mobile franchise, Blizzard needs to ask themselves, is it worth alienating even a fraction of 35 million loyal fans? In the Lost Honor cinematic, Sarfang said what he wants is his horde back. Well, I want my Blizzard back. I want the people who understood and listened to their community. I want the people who are just like their fans, gamers making games for other gamers. And I have a good analogy myself to go alongside Az's. Az's. Let's say I have this restaurant that I work nearby, right? I go down there every day for lunch. It's affordable, and more importantly, the food tastes great. Always nice and hot when I get it. Take it back to my office. Time to time, I go in and actually have a nice meal. You know, sit in the restaurant as you do late in the evening, about 5 o'clock, have your dinner. Staff are always nice. You never have to wait more than 30 seconds to find a table. And more importantly, the place is always packed, so that amount of nice service, kind of rare these days. You get seated. Girl comes back in a few minutes with your menus and asks you what you want to drink. Food comes out relatively quickly. Food's always nice and hot. Staff are always nice. The chef himself always comes out to make sure everyone is enjoying their food. Then after a little while, you hear that the place is closed down. In fact, they've moved locations to be further inside the city. In fact, closer to your side of the city. So you decide to go see how things are. You've heard that they have more Korean items on their menu. You actually like to be a little bit adventurous from time to time. So you go, and there's like 3 tables that are, being waited on. 3. No one else in the entire restaurant, just 3 tables. Besides you. No one's waiting on these tables when you show up. And you wait 5 minutes to get taken to a table. You wait another 10 minutes to get your menus. Only 1 waitress. Must be a slow day, you think? It feels like an hour. In fact, you time it. It takes an hour for your food to get out there. 3 tables of just 2 people, much like yourself. And yet you wait an hour for your food. This from the same place usually takes 20 minutes. In a packed restaurant. You eat, you're dissatisfied. The staff are kind of uptight, standoffish. You pay. You had a good meal after all. It was worth the wait. You leave. But then you come back the next week. You've heard that they've had some problems with their staff, and you're kind of understanding of that fact. So you come back again, and pretty much the same thing, only there's less tables. In fact, there's just 1 table. So you pay for your food, you eat, you leave. This time, pissed off, not disappointed. And yet, you hear that staff has improved. So you go back 1 more time, and you don't even get to order your food. You've had enough. You leave without even paying for the water. This is what happens. Gone are the days of the chef coming out and making sure everyone's having a good time. Gone are the days of everyone being waited on very quickly. Gone are the days of the nice and polite staff, replaced with short attention span youngsters. Perfect analogy, if you ask me, because this is what happens. You fail to give your customer what they want, and they will go somewhere else. You piss your customer off too many times, they will give you a middle finger and go out the door, because they've had enough. They will go somewhere else where their money is valued and their needs are given the attention they deserve. When will Blizzard be like that again? Giving their fans and customers the things they deserve, not what they think they want, not things that they know won't go over well. When will Blizzard show the same dedication that they had to crafting beautiful worlds with wonderful stories as they did in the old days? Diablo Immortal has the potential to work, but that's not the problem. The problem is that none of us want it, and none of us asked for it. No king rules forever, Blizzard. In order to save your community's perception of you, you need to get your heads out of your asses. Alright? You need to start making games for your fans again. Not seeking a market when you already have 35 million people. And you need, this is the most important part, you need to be willing to listen to and take feedback, positive or negative, instead of censoring us like we're tantrum-throwing children. The alternative? End up like so many other golden age relics of the past. Developers who promised the world ended up being old and forgotten. If I was the CEO of Blizzard, I know what I'd do.